the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linnell Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. The best right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live. Let's find your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals, let your greatest flow with inspirational perspective.
Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linnell Harris, your very own life coach right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, good Sunday morning.
Good Sunday morning.
A good holiday Sunday morning. And hopefully you guys are enjoying your holiday weekend so far. I'm incredibly excited once again to have Miss Sheena Sapaula in the studio with me this morning. Good morning, Sheena. How are you?
I'm excited. It's like a new routine coming here. I love it. It's awesome.
Man, I love it. And we had such a good time with you last time.
It was easy. You make just talking about the topic, because I'm naturally an introvert, but it's exciting to have this conversation and dialogue because it's so powerful when people start talking about it.
Oh, man, big time. And so I'm excited to have you back. And thank you for being back.
Of course.
This morning. So this morning, we are doing part 2 of how to build and protect your financial foundation.
Correct.
And, well, why don't you share just a little bit about what we talked about last time? And because we spent a lot of time talking about traditionalists, baby boomers, but what else comes to mind for you in terms of what we talked about and what you shared?
It's so powerful. It's just the discussion of change and mindsets of when you seek out information, the information you know about money, until people are open to saying the things that I've been doing up until this point might not be working, I'm open to learning new things. That was the bulk of discussions last time, and we got to introduce some concept of how the foundation of finances is in an industry that's so reliable and has been around for so long. And it opens up the door to say, well, how can this affect kids? And of course, how can it affect retirement would be the next one. But this is a discussion it can't be simply done with just one segment. It definitely has to be broken up.
I felt the same way, and that's why I'm so excited and happy that you came back. I'm so excited because today we'll be talking about millennials in particular. I'm sure we're going to cover a lot of different things regarding just protecting and building financial foundation, but millennials in particular.
Yes.
Millennials in particular. And what I wanted to do to kick us off is to actually share a little bit about millennials, because I think sometimes when we start talking generational stuff, people don't necessarily fully okay, what does that mean? What is an Xer? What is a millennial? What's the what's the difference between the two? I think baby boomers, we kind of get the idea, okay, they're a bit more mature than some of us, right? But I just want to break it down. So that way there's no, everybody's very, very clear. And so for those of you listening, this is when you think about generations, and typically you have 4 generations living at one time.
Correct.
And they define a particular era.
Correct.
And so you have the silent generation that is still with us. They're about 75 to, let's say, 92, 93.
They're increasing the lifespan. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the silent generation. Many of them were born in 1928 to 1945. Then you have, and we call them traditionalists as well.
Correct.
Okay, and then you have the baby boomers, and I believe probably our parents were baby
Correct.
boomers, right? And they were born between 1946 and 1964, and they are about 57 to 75 now.
The fun generation.
Yeah,
They're so fun. Those are my
yeah,
parents.
and they fought all the wars.
Yes, they've seen
It's
the
a
most
tough
change.
generation
Yes,
too. Yeah,
yes.
and very tough. It's funny because I'm thinking about what we're going through, and when you look at history
Compared to what they went through.
I mean, even the silent generation, right? The Great Depression, World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam. I mean, there's a lot of wars.
Yeah, my grandfather alone was World War, and then my dad, African American, born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. All the stories he would tell me, you look at perspective of what we deal with right now, it's dramatically different than what they had to go through. So
It's a lot different.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, for those of us, the Xers and Millennials and Gen Z who are like, what is happening? It's like, we're just getting a little taste. A little taste of discomfort that many of our parents and grandparents already had.
Well, Generation X is what my husband would say, the sexiest generation alive. That's what my husband would say.
Why does he say that?
Because he's a Generation X.
Okay, well, then I agree with him.
Pam was
Good
probably
one, Matt.
spot on.
Good one, Matt. I like it. Yeah, because Gen X, so Gen X was born between 1965 and 1980. And anyone in that time span is Gen X, and we are 41 to about 56.
Oh yeah, Matt falls in that realm.
Yep. And so, and I'm on the end there. I'll be 45 this year. Maybe that's why I have some millennial ways, but nonetheless an Xer. And then the generation we're going to spend some time talking about today, which I
Yes.
think is really important, because even if you're silent generation, baby boomer, and you're like, why am I listening to this? You want to check this out. And I'm going to talk about why. Because this generation is going to have a major impact on us.
Oh yes.
Major impact. And they were born in 1981 to 1996. And they are between the ages of 25 and 40 now.
I will say I'm in there, but I won't disclose exactly.
Oh, there you go.
I'll
There
say
you
that.
go. All right. So you're in there, which means, hey, you can be, 20s, easy.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I'm in my 20s forever.
And we'll talk a little bit about Gen Z today.
Yes.
But they were born 1997 to 2012.
Correct.
And I don't know what we're going to call this next generation after
They
that.
call them, I think, founders is what I've heard.
Oh, really?
Founders. So
Okay.
I don't know if that deals with the new era of technology that we're in.
Yeah,
So we'll
yeah.
see.
And millennials definitely, I mean, they are the
cusp of,
of
Yes.
technology.
which is why millennials really started the change of how things are done differently, because they were on the cusp of the information era, where their exposure to information was far greater than Generation X or anybody older than that.
Yeah,
So they think differently.
a lot differently.
Yes.
And let's talk a little bit about why, because gathered up some facts about millennials. And millennials are now the second largest generation that votes.
They're active, they're vocal, they're opinionated. I probably would want to be more accepting of different opinions would be great,
Yeah.
but they're more
Yeah.
open than normal.
Yeah, very open, very diverse, incredibly diverse. And among millennials, around 4 in 10 of those ages 25 to 37 are educated. Now, and this is a big difference, like this is kind of an uptick in contrast to other generations,
Correct.
where millennials are also the most educated generation in many ways, at least formally educated. And then millennials, now here's the crazy part. Millennials who have some college or less are the lowest earners of all time. And so you have this contrast where you have a lot of millennials who are the most educated, but then you have some who have some college or less, and they earn less than anybody else. So we as Xers, baby boomers, etc., we could make more without a college degree.
It's different. Even when Matt would describe how he grew up, you can see a lot of similarities with me and him, but there's that slight difference. We were very much sold on the college experience. So that's why growing up my whole life, college. And even for me getting a finance degree after 4 years, I still didn't feel that I was fully informed. And the biggest difference between Generation X and Millennials is we have access to more information. So then that's where that stemmed, that let me search for what's missing. Let me search for this missing piece of information, which is also the birth of a lot of entrepreneurs as well.
Big time, big time. So a couple of more things about Millennials. They're starting their families later. And I don't know what, in terms of building your financial foundation, if that's a good thing or not. I know I started my family later, and so my financial foundation is stronger. I'm guessing that's why. And last but not least, they will be very soon the largest living generation, because Xers, we don't have anything on them in terms of population. And so they're really up against it with baby boomers.
Oh, yes.
And as baby boomers are dying, because, that's one of the guarantees we talked about the last time we were here.
Correct.
As baby boomers are dying, millennials who are younger are quickly becoming the largest generation. Still number 2 right now. I don't know what the projections are. I didn't even look them up, because we know it's going to happen soon.
And even when you look at that group, millennials and Generation X, more of the sandwich generations.
Yeah.
The reason you'll see some millennials that will wait longer and longer and longer, because they're noticing their parents, they're noticing grandparents and what they had to struggle with and what they had to go through, especially going into retirement. In their minds, they're thinking, let me build this up, let me wait. The expense of raising a family is far greater. Plus, you have more ambitious individuals. So they want to go and have a career. They want to have that freedom before they go ahead and settle down and raise children. But the other side of it is now there's other things to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, there's other things to talk about. Because is it really working out the way that they expected it to be?
Exactly. Exactly. So I got a lot of questions about millennials. I know millennials are listening. I've already seen it. They're like, hey, I'm tuned in, Linnell. This morning I saw the advertising. I got questions. And so, give us a phone call, 773-591-1690. The first thing I want to talk about is the financial situation of millennials. Because that not only does it impact the baby boomers who are their parents, but it impacts them directly as well. I was looking at some stats here, and more millennials are living at home with their parents. They call it waiting to fly or leaving the nest. But more millennials are at home with their parents than any other generation before them.
There's actually a good, solid reason for it. There's a bunch of dynamics to it, but even for me, just witnessing it from my own personal experience, and why I do believe entrepreneurship is a great answer, is technology really changed the game for job security for us. So it's really job insecurity. We were sold on the job is secure. You work at a union, you collect your pension, the company takes care of you forever. But I always use these analogies for people to really grasp what happened. There was a day that we used to rent from this place when we wanted to go get a rental video, and that place was just that reaction. Blockbuster. I remember Blockbuster.
Yeah.
But now you look at today, who's the number one renter of videos? It's Netflix.
How about that? Yeah.
And
nowhere to go.
You don't have to leave the house. You just get it. And what did that do to jobs? When's the last time you saw a Blockbuster?
Because when I was a young person, typically there was another young person who was checking me out.
There.
And was like, Mr. Harris, before you can take this video, you need to pay your late fees.
Your DVD, your Blu-ray, all these things, all this is gone.
Right.
It's like nostalgia if you see any Blockbuster. So right there alone is a great example of how the jobs just kind of went down. We can use the example of the number one retailer back in the day. Me growing up, it was Walmart. You go there for everything. But now you have Amazon. I don't have to leave.
Right.
Because of technology, I just pick my phone, press a button, it shows at my door. But it's not even the local store that was affected with jobs. Think about logistics and retail and home office and the corporate office. Because you don't need people, they are now replaced with technology.
Wow.
And it's scary. Even banks today. The reality is, do I really need to go into a bank to do things and get things done. I don't know. You can do direct deposit by taking a picture. Even millennials, you'll say, do you have a check? Where's your checkbook? That might have been for baby boomers, but millennials, what's that?
I can count on one hand the amount of times I go into a bank in 1 year.
Technology.
Unless for some reason I'm starting a business or I need to meet with my business banker, there's just no reason to go. All technology, like you said.
Even when you go into a bank, even if you do, you'll see the teller.
Mm-hmm.
Come, use this machine. And all I'm thinking is you're just eliminating
your job.
Even McDonald's kiosks are coming about. You go to the airport, there's kiosk. Everything is learning to be automated. And I want people to understand the reason for that is there's no such thing as value of a person working for somebody anymore like it used to be. You cannot compare it at all.
Right.
And that's the part where millennials are now realizing all this plan that I laid out for myself, going to school and racking up all this debt, I can't find a job because during this whole entire time, technology has been replacing my opportunity. It's crazy.
And then many of the times the jobs they have, they're underemployed.
Of course. Oh, yes.
Underemployed.
I'm being paid less than what my degree tells me I should be paid. What's going on here?
It's crazy. It's crazy. So, I mean, in many ways, I don't know if we could say the majority of millennials, but there are a number of millennials who find themselves underemployed in financial straits, etc. Along with that, heavy debt.
Exactly. The heavy debt that a ordinary income cannot handle. So then you see the shift of I want to be an entrepreneur now.
And let's break down an ordinary income. Because I was also looking at some numbers where there was at one point where Hsas in particular, when you looked at a college graduate, we were making on average about $56,000 a year, right? Like, then that's median. And then when you look at the numbers for millennials, it drops.
Oh, I totally relate to that.
And we didn't have the kind of debt that they have.
Oh, yes.
Right? And it drops, if I'm not mistaken, it's like $48,000, $49,000. So like a $7,000 drop.
I still remember my first check coming out of college. It was $42,000 a year gross. And I've now realized the term gross means you really do feel gross after you see all the taxes getting taken out.
After you see all the line items, right?
I said, what did I just do? I just went to school. I went for 4 years. I have a degree in marketing and finance, and I'm only worth this. That's where you see this like movement. I called my mom the first day. I said, Mom, I don't know how you did this for 40 years. I don't think this is for me.
Let me tell you, as someone who grew up in corporate America most of their professional life, and then transitioned to entrepreneurship later on, it's like my understanding, even how I grasp like money and annual income is so different now. It's incredibly different because your gross, you just never ever saw it, and there was very little you could do if you were getting a W-2 to, in some ways manipulate that. There are things you can do.
Correct.
But there's still, some stops. Whereas with entrepreneurship, just much more control.
Yeah, you realize as a W-2, the tax code is more of an enemy.
Yeah.
But as an entrepreneur, it's an asset.
It's a real friend.
Oh,
yeah.
You love it a lot. You love it a lot.
Big time.
And I even told my mom, I said, me transitioning to entrepreneurship, and I have empathy for anybody that does, you're talking about decades of thinking a certain way that were instilled in your brain subconsciously, because the subconscious takes up more space than the actual conscious brain, that you don't even realize you have.
Yes.
And so you have to go through this process of painful change to think differently.
Man, it's incredible. I saw a quote by Kevin Leary. I'm not going to get it 100% right, but what he said was this, and it was profound. I just read it yesterday. But in the quote, he says, the salary is what they're offering you to forget and leave your dreams.
That's deep. I don't know if you quoted it right, but the point came across.
That's the point.
That's the point.
I probably don't. It's not as eloquent.
They want to pay you the least to maximize the most in return.
Exactly. And in them paying you the least, many of us have to give up on our dreams.
Correct. Which they don't even know they're doing over time.
Yeah. And if there's any generation that I know had dreams or, in many ways had aspirations that are likely not being fulfilled, it's the millennial generation.
I think that's where the millennials will look at their parents and say, the things that you pick up and you notice, there's regrets there.
Yeah.
And it's a slow, hurting on the soul because they don't have the time to go back
Yeah.
and do it all over again.
Yeah.
And how many times do you see people who are older say, just make sure you do something you love? That's it.
And I don't think many of us get it until
We
it's too
don't.
late.
Yeah,
Until
we
it's
don't.
too late. Just do something you love. So let's talk about them financially. So, and I'm just going to throw some scenarios at you because what we're talking about is protecting my financial foundation. And the first place I want to go is, well, Sheena, I mean, it's fine if you tell me to protect my financial foundation, but I don't have no money. I mean, I share my car. I share my apartment. I have roommates. I share everything. I have share apps for everything. I share my taxis and Uber. I share. And I don't have much personal wealth myself. Why does this conversation even matter to me?
Oh, it's the dilemma with access to information also brings about this thing called instant gratification. Now, I wish that millennials would always go back to the parents because they knew that you put the hard work in and the fruits of the labor. The downside is when millennials don't see that instant, it has to get big, or that I have to save extra, like thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars for it to be real, they push it off and never do it. But the reality is what? It's a habit. Financial foundation is a habit before anything else. So you have to start something to go somewhere. And that's what they don't understand because of the instant gratification.
So what you're saying is even if there's just a little bit,
Correct.
beginning to build the muscle
Exactly.
to create good habits will set you up for success
Correct.
when you begin to gain more.
It's a behavior you're trying to eliminate. It's a behavior you're trying to change. Just like when you eat healthier and you exercise, you don't do it all up front. Well, I hope you don't. If you do, you realize how much it fails.
Yeah.
So you have to do it slowly, and you realize it's the end goal is changing the habit, and the byproduct is I am going to accumulate wealth because it's going to force me to look, think, and act differently towards a lot of things that I didn't even realize I was doing it completely opposite of what I should have been doing. So it's a habit.
Got it. So building the right habit. So that's the number one. I love that
Number
answer.
one.
That's the reason it matters. Now, the other thing that comes to me right away is when we're talking about protecting your financial foundation, well, we talked a lot about life insurance
Oh, yes.
the last time you were here.
Oh, yes.
And the younger you are,
The better. Even when I started working, I would go down to HR, and they said, "Sheena, you gotta put money in your 401k." Now, I'm not a
Right.
registered investment
Right.
advisor. I'll put a
Right.
disclaimer, but I would look at that and say, what benefits am I getting from this? And that's really what started me to understand it, because I would look at my parents and say it didn't work out, and I started to research. So remember we talked about last time about being a coach for yourself, like seeking this information.
Right.
I went and started to study where defined contribution plans came from, the fact that they weren't around for so long, and how they worked, and I realized that's the tax code working against me. So let me figure this out. Let me try something different. But going back and explaining that to my parents, you're talking about generations of them knowing that this is the only way to do it. We're talking about 50 years of this being around. So I'm like, Mom, I think this should be different, but the reality is these have been around since the 70s. And if I wanted to change a mindset, there goes that habit change. I couldn't even talk to my parents about it because it was not processing.
Gotcha.
It's stuck. So then I said, let me be that change agent in my family. Let me just do it and see where this goes.
Well, so I love that. There's a lot of wisdom. I'm unpacking it, and even I was just sharing with you before the show. A lot of what you shared the last time you were here. By the way, if you haven't had a chance to check out that segment, please do. It's now on YouTube. You can check it out on YouTube. You can also check it out on Facebook at Coach Linnell Harris to find out all the valuable information Sheena shared with us in part 1. Here we are, part 2, talking more so about millennials. And so, habit information. Again, with a millennial, I want to build a habit, and I do have this information. But at the end of the day, Sheena, it just doesn't seem like it adds up. I do have to take care of myself. I'm living at home with my parents. And so if something happened to me, they got it. Maybe they have a small policy on me. And I don't have many assets or resources. So why does it matter? Why does it matter that I really began taking building my financial foundation seriously right now, or even protecting a little bit that I have. Like why does this really, really, really matter to me?
It goes into how you have to talk to people who are open for change.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when I have these discussions, my first trigger is, are you open for a different discussion? Is what you're doing right now, what you continue want to do, is it going to get you to where you want to go, or are you open to actually looking at something differently? And then preparing them to say, this is different. So it's a gradual process of education. So I'm not even asking for them to take action. I'm not asking for them to start the habit immediately. It's just to start being educated on it. So if you've been educated on this is the way to do it, and it's been subliminal messages to you in your brain for 30 plus years, can you imagine how much you have to deprogram yourself?
Yeah.
So then I'm going to offer books. I'm going to direct them to certain YouTube channels to read up on this information and really be an agent of change. And then in that moment, I'm like, okay, now it's time. Now it's time to really groom them to understand what this really is. But most times, that's the one thing I look for. Are you open to change?
Can I ask you a question? Then I want to add to that. In your experience, because you work with a lot of millennials, you're a millennial yourself, what's the ratio of people that are actually willing to make that leap?
Change, it only takes one. So in order to get to that one, you're going to have to go through a number of individuals that don't want to change. But with that one, if they change and completely change, they can influence more.
So, but give us a number, right? I know I'm pushing you a bit.
I would say probably...
If you had 10 people who were...
Three. I'd probably say 30%.
30%?
Oh, yes.
Out of 10?
And it's interesting you say it that way, because most of us are really in this mindset, which is another limiting belief we got to get rid of, that you must be perfect. That you must have 100%.
Yeah.
Or high, at least above a 70%.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. If you look at the individuals in our history that made the biggest change, they were one of what?
A few.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you only need that one person.
Yeah.
And if you instill that person in a family, that person becomes a change agent to the entire family.
For the whole family.
Exactly.
Love that.
So look at the numbers more so out of 100 people, 30. Out of 10 people, 3. But out of a family, just 1.
Now, I'm going somewhere with that. Because I think often, so last week, one of my listeners, they sent me a note. They were like, you were fussing at us. But I had what I called a conversation about money. And I talked about the resources that, if you're listening to the show, you have. You talked about information. And I guess I got on my soapbox. And here's the reason I got on my soapbox. Because I do realize how many of us, we get this wonderful information, but we never make the change. I love the fact that you said it doesn't have to be done perfectly. You just have to do it. You just have to attempt over and over again. Persistence. Now, you said 3 out of 10. So if you had 10 people, right, and you guys have heard Sheena already. If this is your first time, you're in for a real treat. Incredibly knowledgeable. And so to have the opportunity to be mentored by you, right, is a incredible opportunity. You would think people would just clamor at that and be fully committed to it. What I'm hearing you saying is, if I had 10 people who I'm like, hey, I'm about to pour into you, we're going to do this, I'm going to teach you how to think about your finances differently, how to build business, everything. 3 of them would stick. 3 of them would stick. That correlates so closely to the number of people that live paycheck to paycheck.
That's interesting.
75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
And I didn't even know that before you said that.
75%. So there's so many of us that are suffering, but comfortable. And that's the only thing I can think. Like, you have to be comfortable if you don't really make a shift.
The reality of to change, it just takes repetition, and you have to reinforce it. And you're essentially recruiting mindsets to come over here. And I always think about...
So it's a mindset thing.
It is a mindset, but you know what? Jesus was the number 1 recruiter. It took 12.
No doubt.
It just took 12, and then look where we are today.
No doubt.
So I'm thinking to myself, if I have this one life I'm living, if 1 out of 3, if 3 out of 10, I'm able to convert to a new way of thinking, it's going to have an impact for generations to come, starting with family, like our kids. you know, my sons, Jojo who's 10, Jordan who is 2, I'm going to be instilling this from the grassroots, and constantly I'm battling against when they go to school and these different mindsets.
Yeah.
You are so aware of it, but I was that one person that said, let me start thinking differently, and now I'm realizing I'm affecting now my kids. So that one person does actually recruit mindsets moving forward. That's how you got to think about it.
Got it. So in many ways, here's what I'm hearing. You're like, Linnell, stop worrying about the 4th and the 5th.
Correct.
And concentrate on the 3.
Correct.
Because they're going to really
Multiply.
and create something beautiful. And the 4th and the 5th, well, the numbers already say they're not going to show up.
You have leaders, you have followers. Both are very important.
To that point, I want to ask the listeners a very simple question. It may come off provocative. You're laughing.
I know, because I can't wait to hear the question.
But where are you?
Oh, them individually.
And I want you to think right now, as you play this financial game, where are you? And as you listen to this information, will you be part of the 30%, let's say 25 to 30%, that actually takes it in? This is maybe a little me doing what I was doing last week. But are you going to be one of the people that actually takes it in and uses this information to transform your finances? Or, because in the second hour, we're going to start to get into the real meat and potatoes. And so, or are you going to be one of the 70 to 75% where nothing changes? And maybe if you're lucky, someone in your family will be part of that 30% that helps you make the shift. But ask yourself now, like, which one are you going to be? And here's the sad reality.
Majority
Are not, they're going to listen,
not take action.
but they're not going to take action.
I'm hoping I'll instill a little bit of.
Yeah, I like to evoke some type of like emotion, like disrupt,
It
like
has to.
make people be like, no, that ain't going to be me.
It has to be that way.
No way.
It has to be that way. Because every single exposure to this type of environment is that one chance that somebody's just going to get it and realize that the advice that we've been surrounded with in our immediate community, we have to go outside and say, let's be that change agent, which it's such an emotional thing for so many people because they're fighting against a lot of guilt, a lot of identity, a lot of doubts, a lot of fears. But that's where the courage has to come out. That's where you have to disown the helplessness and actually be your own helper.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So in the next hour, you all, I want to ask Sheena about student debt and how these millennials can begin to cope with their student debt. But in the meantime, where I'd like to go next is I want to discuss the reality you and I just experienced. So since Sheena's been on the air, it's been 2 weeks. We've got a number of phone calls and people that Sheena has worked with. The majority of them are boomers.
Yes.
And I think the conversation you and I are having right now is so appropriate because we're talking to millennials. I don't think we had one millennial.
No.
At all.
No, I think maybe 1 out of probably 10. But that makes complete sense because they understand now through wisdom and through life experience, and you're hoping that is going to be instilled down to the next generation. It's a conversation that I wish would go back to the kitchen table.
But can I? So I just want to be transparent about some of the conversations we've had since then, because almost every conversation has been, hey, this person is in their 50s, this person's in their 60s, and they're looking for some level of financial protection, right, for their families that's affordable.
Correct.
It's all of them are, hey, Linnell, I'm older. How do I get into a situation, from term to permanent?
Correct.
Or just some permanent insurance outside my job that's affordable. Why is this such a big deal for millennials who are listening?
Because if you go talk to those individuals and you ask them, why do they have to use the word affordable?
Yeah.
You'll realize why you want to get this sooner. because it's a cycle that continues to happen of, I need this, but I wait. We're in an era of procrastination. And every time we...
Sheena, I'm not procrastinating. I just don't have the money. I mean, and when I have more money, when I'm older, right? When I have more money, I'll do it.
We don't have a money problem. We have a value problem.
Ah.
So give me your bank statement, and I'll tell you what you value.
Ah. Got it. So it's a value. So I'm spending money.
It's not a money problem. It's definitely a value problem. What do you value? What do you prioritize? And that's a reflection of what you've been exposed to.
So why should I value life insurance? Money that is probably going to go to people that my family that, okay, that's fine. My parents have money. They'll be okay, right? Why should I value this if it's not going to benefit me?
You start the conversation. Okay, I understand you. I completely understand where you're coming from. But can it value in a different way? What do you value right now? What would you like? And they'll say it. I want growth. I don't want to deal with losses. I want to have tax-free income. I said, what if I told you that certain things today actually can give you all those things? Would you look at it differently? And those discussions, I say, let's talk about change, because I'm introducing a concept they've never been exposed to, but actually it's been around for quite a long time. So then if I tackle them where they're at with their needs, which is I want growth, I don't want to lose because I just experienced 2020. You have baby boomers that experience like 2 or 3 times what just happened.
Right.
But here as millennials, they just got a taste of what it means to experience that. And they might have got a grasp of it in 2008, more so Generation X. They really felt it.
Yeah.
But now you have a taste of it. How many more times do you want to experience that? How many more times? How many more times can you handle it? Majority of what happened last year in 2020 is a reason people are living at home.
True.
So how would you like to protect yourself against that happening again?
And how can life insurance products protect me? Like, from that, I mean, isn't it when you die?
This is the thing that affects people financially. 1, an unexpected passing. 2, a change in health. So I can work and make money, but if I'm not healthy, I can't work.
Right.
But the third one is, if I'm going to tuck my money somewhere, and that's after I have a discussion on what you value, right? Then let's talk about the things that you should look for. Liquidity, so I prevent myself from going into debt with other people.
Okay.
And I actually use myself as a bank.
Okay.
Number
Wait. What? I can use myself as a bank?
Why not?
But I don't have a lot of money.
Do you need a lot? Why do you think you need a lot? It's a habit. So my biggest thing is questions.
Yeah.
Because questions attack the subconscious responses. So that's a
to
way
just
of
dig
thinking.
deeper. Yeah.
It is, because people are just saying things. I don't have a lot of money. Why do you feel that way? Let me look at your bank account. Okay, let me look at your statement. I just added up here that you spent this much on miscellaneous things that give you no value in return, like Coca-Cola, alcohol.
Food's a big one, isn't it?
Food that's not healthy for you.
Right.
All this stuff that's just not a great investment. What if I actually showed you a better way to put something somewhere? And it's not a lot. It's actually very affordable for you. Because I'm still trying to use a language that they're used to. Because I'm not looking for exponential. I'm looking for habits. Just let me give you habit changes. And we talked about that before. Is then now I'm going to meet with you on a yearly basis, because I got to combat 30 previous years of the way that you think. I cannot change it in one meeting. I got to change it over a course of years. But I guarantee by that 5th year, epiphany.
Yeah.
Epiphany.
Yeah.
And by the way, any prior conversation I had before 2020, what I was working on developing people. 2020 just got just more conviction now. Now, when the bad things happen, now you get why you did what you did, and now you're happy about it. Now you're more involved with it. Now you become a change agent, so their testimony becomes the victory. Go speak this language to your family until you're blue in the face.
Wow. Well, that went fast. We're at the top of the hour.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? Sheena, you said 2 things that I want people to think about over the break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about student loans and student debt and how millennials can really begin to build and protect their financial foundation. But the 2 things you said that really are sticking with me. 1, we have a value problem. as 2 words, but it's still just kind of bumping around in my head. I'm like, yeah, you're getting to the core of why we have financial issues. Because the things that I value, are they really, really taking me where I want to go? So clear. Value problem, number 1. And then number 2,
the habits to change it.
habits. The habits that we have. And in some ways, I kind of see them as interlocked almost. I want to build a framework. Like, value, problem, habits, how do they interchange and why do they cause the problems? Because what I'm getting is we need to build good habits, but probably first break some really bad habits.
Yeah, the value. Do you value your life?
Yeah.
The reason the value system needs to change is that's why you're accepting a paycheck that doesn't make sense to you. It's a value.
Man, well, hey, when we come back, you guys, we got more, and we're going to be talking with Sheena about how can millennials think about or even begin to address student debt as they build and protect their financial foundation. But we'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linnell Harris, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the Talk of Chicago. We'll be right back.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come.
All right.
But you've left me no choice.
This is good.
Yes.
I mean, what are you guys thinking? Like, is this hitting home for you? And what questions do you guys have for Sheena? Wow, Kimberly said this should be in every classroom. I agree. I wish it was. Wish it was in my classroom. How much further? This information is so needed and appreciated. OMG, we need thousands of Sheenas to spread this message. She's amazing. I agree. I agree. Can you tell us more about being our own bank? You want to tell them a little bit more about being their own bank?
It's where you use the tax code as your asset. Absolutely.
The American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
So it's where we use the tax code
for your benefit, because most people essentially, if you think about their retirement, they're paying a mortgage payment on it because it's the taxes. And that is going to consistently go up. And if anybody's noticing right now with this printing of money, I am telling you, we're going to have to pay for it some way, shape, or form.
We're already starting to pay for it.
And then
we're already starting to pay. Yeah.
The proposals from government about the tax changes, it's not just going to affect those that are wealthy. It's going to trickle down to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is that moment that you have to really change. Okay, where am I going to put my wealth to protect it from what losses and taxes?
In the 2020 payouts.
Exactly.
And 2021 payouts.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're gonna get that money back.
Listen, you want to get the taxes out of the way now so you can keep more of it later.
Right. And so that's how you become your own bank.
Correct.
And they're likely, I'm guessing, products.
The Universal Life, Index Universal Life, is an evolution of how you can use the tax code to your advantage, and it's actually specific stuff that
So let's talk more about that in the second hour.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we'll come back to that. So Bill, that's an answer to your question. What other questions do you guys have?
The moment my son saw a redwood tree.
Nothing changes until your mindset changes. So true, so true. Morning, everyone. Let's see here.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
I'm just looking for more questions. Whatever questions you guys have, please just drop here.
Like hiking, biking, fishing, or camping.
Yeah, even getting into the value of life insurance. Think about it. My value is around, I value my life, I value my health, and I value my wealth. If your value system changed to that, you would understand how the tax code can work in your favor, because life insurance fits all of those categories.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk more about the TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA, which are the tax codes that allow this to be a tax-free vehicle where it protects you from losing, but also gives you the ability to pull it out tax-free.
Nice. Yeah, it's well, you and I were talking, and I was telling you, like, it's when it comes to tax books, they're difficult to read. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think of any book I've read, the books I've read about how to protect myself from taxes are the most difficult. Mm-hmm. I think there's twofold. Reasons are twofold. One, I'm fighting against programming the entire time I'm reading. Because my programming is like, look, just earn your money and pay your taxes, okay? Like, stop it. I mean, that's the programming.
It is the programming.
That's the programming. Like, what do you need to know this for?
Right.
And then as you're learning it, it's based in it's law. It's like reading law.
Yes.
And so because it's law, it's like, and what I was sharing with you is, it's like, all right, I'm just going to take in this one page. I'm taking this one page and figure out how it applies to me.
Yes.
And then after I do, like, take action on this one page, I'll come back to the next page. So almost every textbook I've ever read takes a long time.
Especially with the tax code, it's like you're interpreting a different language.
Big time.
So you need an interpreter. That's why you have to have a CPA in your corner.
I like that.
The CPA is basically going to train you on interpreting what's going on, and that's how you increase your knowledge. It's a teacher, essentially. You always need to have teachers in your life, but you definitely need a teacher in the tax code area.
No, I love this, and I think I also want to share that too, because I know when you get into these kind of conversations, people will think like you and I are anomalies.
Correct.
Like, oh, they know this, and it's like, no, it wasn't easy.
Years.
Well, years and some pain, because those reading some of those books it wasn't fun. I mean,
you had to take it in doses.
Yeah,
You
in
do
doses.
audio sometimes.
Yeah, and then there's still more. I mean, you and I were talking about, just transparently looking at upping Legends Insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were kind of breaking some stuff down. I was like, Sheena, I got to wrap my mind around this.
Exactly.
Like, it's because it's new information.
Correct.
And it's like, all right, how do we properly deploy this and think about this in terms of our own financial strategy? Piece
by piece.
Yeah.
That's that part that people, I don't want them to be so hard on themselves of understanding something all up front. And that's why I just want, let's go little by little. It's probably going to take a good solid X amount of time for you to really process all this new information coming your way.
I like that.
But when you do, you're going to feel so powerful.
Big time. Mm-hmm. So we got some questions coming in. I know we're coming back in a second here. Let me just check.
Perfect.
So maybe I'll ask some of these questions you guys on the air. Just give me 1 second here, just to check in on where we are. Okay, so we're coming back from break in a second. Here we go. So Brandon, I got your question. Mac, I got your question. Bill, I got your question. We'll ask those on the air.
You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linnell Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
If you wanna be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibility. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Free your goals, live out the dream.
Senate GOP floats nearly $1 trillion infrastructure plan.
Perfect timing.
All this money, man. Where's it coming from?
People have to find a tax-free shelter, like, quickly. Especially millennials.
I'm going to open with that. All right, we're back. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host and life coach, Linnell Harris, right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. In the studio with me this morning, I have Mrs. Sheena Sapaula. Mrs. Sheena Sapaula is the chairwoman of the Field Advisory Board for PHP Agency, also a PHP Agency co-owner and entrepreneur who has used, in many ways, the financial infrastructure, financial industry to, learn about money, but also to create financial wealth and protection for yourself.
Correct.
And so, incredibly excited to have you in the studio
Me as well.
for part 2 of how to build and protect your financial foundation. So check this out, you guys. We're sitting in the studio in the back. Behind Sheena is a television, and CNN just shared that the GOP, they're looking to reveal a plan for a $1 trillion infrastructure. What's the infrastructure plan? So looking to introduce a $1 trillion infrastructure plan. My question to Sheena was, who's paying for that?
We all know who's going to pay for it. It's called taxpayers.
And which taxpayers in particular?
The millennials are going to have to really bear the burden of all this. Next would be Generation X. Baby boomers are like, we did our part. We did our part.
Yeah,
we're good. We're good.
And many of them are already in some type of, hopefully, in some type of tax-free shelter.
No.
Hopefully.
Oh, no. I would say 70% or more are not. And
what's up with that number?
It's a call it subliminal
30
messaging.
to 70%.
I don't know why. And even if I just think about that more, the wealth of how it's distributed. There's a smaller percentage of people are wealthy, so a larger percent that's not. But I also do believe it's part of this habit and value system that we have to change. But this is going to be the biggest effect. That right there is going to affect our kids. Like they're going to boom, because how long would it take to pay this off? And that's what brought me to have this discussion more aggressively about people finding that tax-free shelter, because you're either going to deal with it right now or you're going to take all of it out later. Let
me put this in perspective, because I think sometimes when there's a conversation and people are talking in the billions and in the trillions, I don't even think we process it because it's so much money.
Correct.
Right? But to put it in perspective, so in 2021 already, we had a $1.9 trillion plan that passed, right? And then some of us got checks. And I think we're like, oh, that's cool. And it's like, nah, not really. Because we're going to have to pay that back, y'all.
So
like,
you can't tell me you don't have money anymore.
Well, that too. Because everybody got a check. So you got some money,
Yes.
right? But you might want to hold it and invest it because you got to pay that back. You might like not literally, but in taxes, it's gonna hit you.
It's interest, yeah.
Then looking at this potential proposal, another trillion. That's $3 trillion. $3 trillion. Now I want to put this in perspective, you guys, because that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Now, I remember the amount of money a billionaire makes in a second. I think it's like 20,000.
Even a trillion. Just imagine spending $1 million a day since Jesus walked the earth. You wouldn't even tap into it.
You couldn't even hit $1 trillion.
Correct.
That's how much money that is.
It's scary.
And then, so you say, okay, 30% of baby boomers are in some type of tax shelter where they'll be okay as
Correct.
taxes rise, because as they're getting their payouts from, whatever they saved, maybe they paid those taxes already.
Correct.
And so they can take it tax-free.
Correct.
So 30%. Another 70%, probably in their most vulnerable
Correct.
financial period of life, will find themselves paying more in taxes than they ever have. Then you have Xers. If you're an Xer listening to this conversation, like, man, you got to be...
It's the first wave that's going to be hit the most.
Pay your taxes now.
And why? Because the lifespan. It's getting longer. So baby boomers they're not going to hit it so much. They're experiencing right now, and you probably talk to any baby boomer if they're on the call today, they'll tell you the taxes are real and they're no joke. And if they could do it all over again, they would just prefer not to pay taxes during this time.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, how many more times does one have to be exposed to it? Because if you're a millennial in Generation X, I guarantee you that you're somehow already thinking in your mind, I got to financially take care of my parents or contribute because of this tax situation. Because I've been funding in a vehicle that's been exposed to losing. And I realize now the effects of it. I want you to look at that moment and say, what can I do differently to avoid what I'm seeing could be my future? And that not only could be your future, it could be 10 times worse.
Another reason why, if you're a millennial, like, this conversation is so powerful. And I'll just share this, and this is something we've talked about before too, and I think we both think the same way. For me, I just thought when I'm younger, it's easier to be uncomfortable. I'm young. Like, if I could feel every bump I hit in the car, guess what? I'm young. I'll be okay. I'll bounce back. I look at my son, right? He can like jump off the couch and land the wrong way. And he pops back. I'm okay, Daddy. I'm like, are you? Because I couldn't do that
I
and
know
get back
Pam is
up.
holding her breath because I
Right.
know that's how it would be. I know
Yeah.
Pam is holding her
But they
breath.
pop up every time, right? I'm okay. Because they're young.
Right.
And as you get older, you don't pop up. And that's where you want to have that, pun intended, financial cushion so you can bounce when you fall.
Yeah.
And so I think another reason. So I want to talk about student debt with millennials, but we have a lot of questions from the break. I want to tap into some of these questions real quick.
Sure.
So Brandon, he basically, thanks for the content, Sheena. Can you give millennials exact pillars for establishing a financial foundation?
A great way to give recommendations. So I just said a great asset are two things that you are exposed to that affect your wealth, which is I'm going to pay taxes, and how do I want to go about doing it so it's more advantageous for me in my future? Number two is understanding losses and the impact that it does have on them. Not to say that you are not young and it won't hurt you as much, but it's more about you need a backup plan. So I was very adamant about having information coaching in those two categories: how to protect my wealth from losses and how to make sure that I have tax advantages moving forward. So one of the pillars would be having those two people in your corner that start having that conversation with you to interpret what that really means.
Nice.
And even for me, when I started to learn about what people were saving in for retirement, it was like a broken record repeating over and over and over again. And so recommendations would be, is all your eggs in one basket, or does it make sense as you start to change the habit to diversify just where you're putting things? How much of your hard-earned money and your savings is in the real estate portfolio? How much is in the banks? How much is in the stock market? And then are you even looking at life insurance? Thinking in your mind, wait a minute, this industry's been around for 2,000 years and it hasn't crashed. So maybe they know what to do with money in a way that can protect me. Are you evenly distributed across all the industries, not diversified just in one?
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
Got it. So Brandon, some really good advice there. If you have a follow-up question, just drop it in comments. Okay, I got another one from Mac. Mac says, and by the way, give us a phone call, 773-591-1690 if you have a question. So as millennials, should we be worried about increasing our credit score as much?
It depends on what their main purpose is. I do believe it, but I do not believe it goes before making sure that you understand your money. So before people can understand their money, they also have to understand how you're making it. Because economic power gives you a lot of options. And more importantly, when you have economic knowledge of your money, then you make better decisions. And then when you make better decisions, the byproduct is a better credit score. So people are chasing the wrong result. They're chasing the credit score versus changing the real issue, which is, let me talk about my habits of how do I make wealth and save it.
I love that answer. I really do. Because one, you have way because I would have answered well, credit score is your leverage, and of course you want to have a high credit score. You went right to the top two things we've been talking about. Like, what do you value? Like, do you have a value problem? Because if you raise your credit score, it could be detrimental long term to your financial foundation. I love that thinking. And then two, back to habits.
Well, I go even further than that. Why wait on someone to give you a credit score? Why don't you give yourself a credit score first?
There we go.
I mean, that's the part that we're waiting on people to define us, to tell us what we're worth, waiting on the paycheck. Everything is waiting for someone to tell us who we are. And that's why I tell my son, your opinion of who you are matters before anything and anybody else.
Yes.
Even your parents.
Yes.
So what's your credit score internally? Where would you put your credit score? That right there needs to be solved first.
I love that. Who you are. By the way, shameless plug. The transformational tour of Ghana is back, you guys. And when she said who you are, it just clicked right there, because part of what we do in Ghana is we reclaim our identity and we have conversations about who we truly are. And I do believe that part of the reason we get so misguided is because if I don't have the foundation around my identity and who I am and what I'm trying to create, then the messaging that's out here, I can get tossed and pushed and blown almost in any direction. And so knowing who I am is so important. By the way, if you want to find out more about the Transformational Tour of Ghana, go to my website, LynellHarris.com. And we already had a soft launch, you guys, with clients. They already took up some seats. So for those of you who want seats, do it quick. Check out the information. Can't wait to share more about that in coming weeks. All right, LenelHarris.com. Check it out.
Don't procrastinate.
So don't procrastinate, right? Don't push it off. And again, talk about value. Habits and value problems, right?
But going back, even when people will say the tax code right now for millennials specifically, it's not working in your favor. Here we go. We put our money towards plans, and you got to ask yourself the question: Is that completely going to protect me on the worst case scenarios? And I was taught to find contribution plans. You have to put all you're in there, but there's no liquidity, meaning I can't touch the 59.5. So what was that as an issue to what I'm noticing with baby boomers? This is what drove a behavior of actually borrowing from somebody else. Because what's the likelihood that you need money before 60? It's high. Because if you don't have access to it, you end up borrowing. Even if you borrow from your own plan, you're still borrowing, right?
Yeah.
Then on top of that, are you going to lose? It's a guarantee. You just don't know when, you don't know how much, and there's this acceptance of it's okay to lose 30 to 40%. Listen, if the wealthiest of the wealthy don't accept it, why are we thinking that's okay? It's not even normal. Oh, it's okay, it will recover. I think that's a subconscious statement that you've been told, that you don't realize the impact of that loss. It will take you so much more longer just to get back to where you started.
A lot of time. And you haven't even talked about fees. And I think because the fees are 1%, 2%, those are numbers that we're like, oh, that means nothing. But when you're adding that into compound interest.
Correct.
And by the way, if you're not good with numbers, just trust us. Yes. It's not pretty. 1% is too much.
On top of losses, on top of taxes.
Yeah. It's just. So you just brought up something else. And that is, well, if I'm not going to contribute to a vehicle like a 401k, because that's one of those type of vehicles, then what do I contribute to, Sheena?
Something opposite. Something where there's liquidity that prevents you from going into debt with other people.
And what might that be?
It would be an index universal life insurance.
Universal
life. It's so easy.
Perfect segue into a question from a listener. Did I do that on purpose or was that a mistake? Anyway, so perfect question. So Belle asked, what is a universal life? And she got a universal index life policy.
Correct. It's a history of how life insurance has really worked. Historically, it's been just a death benefit.
I said it wrong. It's an IUL, Index Universal Life, right?
Well, because you can have universal life or you can have index universal life. It's just either you are doing a fixed strategy or a indexing strategy.
What is it?
It's a great way for you to protect yourself on the things that you want to protect yourself against when it comes to your wealth, which are taxes and losses. It's like a historical thing. So then you go back to the history.
So let me ask you a question, Sheena. You're talking about this great vehicle, this, index universe. Do you have one?
Of course. The minute I found out about it.
I like to ask that question, right? Because people are like, man, you talking about it. Do you got it?
I don't even just have one, okay? Not only do I have several, my kids have several, because when you start understanding what the wealthy have been doing for so long, I need to set this up.
So you have several.
Oh, yes.
What about your husband?
Oh, yes, of course.
Your children?
Oh, yes, of course. Anybody and everybody that I can make understand the power of what this is, especially in my family, I'm going to set it up. And I love it because when I saw it, this was my first reaction. I knew there was something out there like this. I knew it. It was like I had this epiphany because I would ask my mom, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I'm always an inquisitive person. I want to know why. And I'm a logical thinker, so it needs to make sense to me. Then when I started to study the tax code around this, which if you look at historically how this works, it's all laid out there, the TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA. So you can put money in life insurance plans, and it is the third tax-free vehicle that is available to everybody. Outside of a Roth IRA and municipal bonds, people don't realize that this is actually that third asset. And they call it the rich man's Roth because a Roth is limitations on $5,500.
So the IUL is called the rich man's Roth?
Rich man's Roth.
Ah.
And it's not even a rich man in terms of dollar. I want to clarify that. It's a rich man in terms of how you think.
Okay, because again, wealth is a mindset.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if I want to capitalize on this, just like with any cost you pay in anything, cost of insurance is based off age, gender, and health. So you can't change gender, but you can control age, which was the younger you are, the better it is. That's why kids plans are a no-brainer. You have to do this. Because you're talking about I don't want to do it because that means I'm going to invoke that they would pass away. And then I change it up and say, you're getting life insurance right now, aren't you? How old are you? I'm 65. Do you wish you would have got it sooner? Oh, yes.
Man.
How much sooner?
Man.
So please set your kids up not to have the same discussion the next 60 years.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. And life insurance gets more expensive, period.
That's it.
As we age
And our health.
Yeah, and with our health. And so it's just, so you have it. Full transparency, I have one. Pam has one.
Oh, and by the way, complete transparency in 2020, we didn't lose.
That's true.
That's just a fact.
I never worried about
You just
the
don't.
financial investments I had in my IUL.
By the way, did you hear about life insurance crashing last year?
No.
No. In
No.
2008, it didn't do it, but real
Nope.
estate, banks got bailed out, stock market crash. When's the last time you ever heard about that industry doing it? I don't.
You don't.
I'm
You
okay.
don't. There's a reason why.
So even if I did have money there, I relaxed because I had my backup plan. That's a problem right now. People don't provide a backup plan. And they wait for these decisions to be made from the house down to everybody. I'm not waiting. Who cares what's going on in the White House? What's going on in your house? Change that first.
Beautiful. So let's talk a little bit more. So one, this type of policy creates a tax shelter. So it's a rich man's Roth.
Correct.
But what else does it do for some, especially a millennial? Like if I'm a millennial, why would I invest in this? My hard-earned money, again, so I don't want to have value problems or value issues, Sheena. I'm following you, and I want to create good habits. Why would I create a habit of investing in this?
Well, it gives you so much more than just building up tax-free cash value. And that you're definitely going to see the fruits of that labor. But you also immediately have a death benefit. And I
Wait. Wait, what? So I immediately have a death benefit?
think about it. You put one amount, say it's an X amount you put into the plan that first month.
Yeah.
But you have an astronomical amount of death benefit. You just realize that you increase your value.
Okay, so what is a death benefit? What does that mean? Why do I care about that?
It goes back to, people valuing themselves and what they value. And the first thing you have to value is how your life. I don't want to break even. I realize that I'm not worth a $42,000 a year check. I'm actually $42,000 for the life of me working. I'm actually worth well over $10 million.
Okay.
So if that's the case, we're not actually protecting the most important assets of who we are, which is our life. Next up was, well, it's great when you're working, but what happens if your health changes?
Oh.
And life insurance says this: if you ever have a health change, heart attack, stroke, cancer, something similar, here, instead of using this death benefit for just death, I'll let you use a portion of it as cash, tax-free. And by the way, there's no rules on what you spend it on.
So wait.
It's too much at once, right? It's just like, here we go.
So you're telling me that this policy not only gives me an immediate death benefit,
Correct.
but in my life, if I happen to get ill, I have to file for FMLA,
Correct.
which means I'm not getting paid at work,
Correct.
and I have to take time off,
Correct.
that I can pull down cash
Yes.
that is tax-free
Correct.
to take care of myself
Correct.
and pay my bills.
And prevent you from actually borrowing from somebody else.
Wow.
Even in family members, banks, going into debt that you never can get out of. And people have experienced this, and I know they have when they think about a family member or someone they know that went through this stuff. And I just want people to know, if it happens for the majority of people, and we know this because that's where GoFundMe kicks in. You can see it.
Yeah.
Then you have to protect your actual health. The best asset you have is your ability to make income. And no one thinks about that until when? The worst things happen.
Now, right now, like if I didn't have one of these policies, I'd be like, the show's over, I need to sign up, right? I do. But I'm sure someone's thinking, okay, how do I make this happen? Because this is clicking, right? At least the 30% of the people who are listening, they're like,
Correct.
how do I do this?
Correct.
So this is how you do it, you guys. Give my office a call. Obviously, we won't pick up because it's the holidays. But Tuesday, I'll be reaching back out to you. My assistant will be reaching back out to you. Give us a phone call, 312-899-6245. What we're going to do is we're going to just take some basic information from you, pass it on to Sheena. Some of the listeners have already experienced this. Once Sheena gets that information, she'll be reaching out to you to help you understand how she can help you create this type of protection for yourself.
Correct.
I just want to put that out there because right now, I know if I'm listening and I didn't have this, I'd be like, how do I get it? How do I get it? And how do I get to Sheena? That's how. 312-899-6245. You can also go to my website, you guys, LenellHarris.com. Just put in contact. Hey, I want to learn more about an IUL.
And I would even go back to it because essentially you're creating your own sense of security. And I remember when I grew up, my parents always talked to me about a pension. I said, Mom, what's this unicorn called a pension?
Yeah.
Because we've never seen
A pension?
A pension, what is this? And when you go back to study where that came from, that was people's sense of security, a pension, your savings, and
Yeah.
Social Security. All of that is a three-legged stool that's really wobbly right now.
Yeah.
So pensions, I wanted to study why they weren't available. Why people like me and you don't have exposure to it like my parents and grandparents.
I only had one job that created an allotment for a pension. One in my career. One.
And you'll notice that they start kind of giving it away. Hey, listen, let me
Yeah.
give you a lump sum now.
Oh yeah, and they've been trying to give me that lump sum. Like, hey,
I always have been in the mindset, I want to know why.
why
And
you
then
want to give this money to me?
And you realize it's because they want to shift that responsibility of retirement off of them and onto you. And the longer you keep a pension, the more they have to be guaranteed to pay. But the reality is pension tension. It's not affordable. And then I learned about the Pension Benefit Guarantee Association where, there's 3 ways that they can get rid of these pensions and you won't have anything to say or do about it. These are scary times and scary things that people have to go take control and make their own sense of security. Not just job security, but also financial security. And there's ways to do it. You just have to be open for it. That's all.
Man. All right. So anything else about an index universal life policy that we should know? We know that there's a death benefit. If I get sick, I can, and of course the sickness has to qualify. We're not talking about a cold, you guys. Okay. You got to be out. You got to be out.
Correct.
Right? But if I get sick, like very ill, I can't work, I can't take care of myself, I can pull down cash, I can borrow from my own policy, and it's tax-free. Anything else?
Oh, the biggest one is you basically set up an asset that can be passed down to your kids. So why would I get plans for my kids at the same time I get plans for myself? Because when I do pass away, it's not a if. It's not a 50-50.
A guarantee.
It's a guarantee.
Death and taxes are guaranteed.
And I won't have used everything because it's still a death benefit. So then the death benefit and whatever cash that I have not used, the collective amount, I take it from my life. I don't break even. And I set my kids up. And the will and trust says this. Out of the 7 to 10 million, for example.
Hold on 1 second. She said the will and trust, guys.
I did it.
That's why I had Attorney Fenton on before Sheena. I'm doing my best here, right? I'm doing my best to set this up in order. So if you called Attorney Fenton's office, you now have a will and trust, which means that when you get your IUL, all you have to do is have Sheena put the trust as the beneficiary.
That's what I said to you. I said,
Yep.
go get an attorney and make sure we get the paperwork so that's the beneficiary.
Boom.
And it's great because you provide rules of making sure that this intellectual property stays in force for generations to come. So our state says...
Wait, generations.
Generations.
So I make an investment in an IUL. Not only does it provide me a death benefit immediately, but it takes care of me. I have cash I can pull down if I get ill during my life when I can't work. And I can take the death benefit upon my passing and apply it to my will and trust to make sure that that wealth goes down not just to one generation but multiple generations.
Oh yeah, I remember my son's plan. I started with, one plan for him for $50 a month, and as I understood wealth and I made more income as an entrepreneur, I was able to increase it and get a second policy. And then I said to myself, well, when I pass away, I got to make sure that whatever I don't use, if that's how it is with him, I'm just going to dump it into his plan, and then it's going to skyrocket up. And then I'm going to teach him as he grows up to do the same thing with his kids. And I'm thinking about what this is going to mean for generations to come. You literally, in one singular decision, if you stick to it, you can change your whole last name to get out of poverty and go into wealth, using the most lucrative industry known to mankind, and also the one industry that's never crashed or failed on us. So then I know for when I pass away and my kids still live on, that this industry is still going to be there alive and functioning.
Now, I just want to share, I have an incredibly wealthy friend. He works because he wants to. When he was born, he was a multimillionaire. His endowment, you guys, was in over $100 million. like a few $100 million. Okay. And this buddy of mine, you know how they've continued to do this?
Tell me.
Exactly what you just explained.
Secrets of millionaires.
Exactly what you just explained. And he broke it down. I'm like, dude, so he's like, yeah, you know, multi-generations, blah, blah, blah. His great-great-great-grandfather was into horses and oil back in Texas. Obviously doesn't look like us, right? And so they have access to this information. Everything Sheena is sharing, you all, it's true. The problem is we're just not privy to it, and now we are. Question is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Again, we got to take action. I got to keep saying that.
I think it's fair, but also too reminding people you are worthy, and starting somewhere is the best thing to do. It's
the beginning.
Exactly, because they're still thinking
it's the beginning.
I'm not worthy because I'm not going to contribute an exorbitant amount. No, you just got to start somewhere.
It's the beginning. It's the beginning. I think about myself. The very first policy I bought, like that was the beginning.
Oh yes.
That was the beginning, and many millennials are that age now. Like this is your beginning. Okay. So we got a question, William. I see you. After this question, I'm gonna go jump to you on the phone. This comes from Denise. Most millennials are into cryptocurrency and forex. What do you say to them to help them understand the power of insurance? I think this is a great question.
This is the biggest thing that people think, that if I talk about financial foundation, if I'm talking about life insurance, I'm telling you not to do anything else. That's not the case. What you're saying is, with risky assets, you have to have insurance on the worst case scenario.
There you go.
So if you're going to do it, great. But if you're going to do it, you better 100% have the backup plan in place.
And here's how I like to think about it. As, by the way, someone who trades crypto and forex, okay? How I like to think about it is this. I have my get rich pal, right? Which is the crypto and the forex,
right?
All those things as they grow. And I have my stay rich pal. And my stay rich pal, that's where the IUL sits, right? That's where those insurance products sit. Because no matter what happens,
correct,
I have that.
Correct.
No matter what happens. And you guys already know what your primary investment vehicle should always be and where your focus should be. On the stay rich pal, the get rich pal is, that's where you play, right? And if something good happens with crypto,
then you
also.
move it.
But if we experience what we experienced in the last week or so, you know what? And this is there's probably some people right now who can't say what I'm like, no big deal. And I'm sure somebody's like, curses on you, Linnell, because they don't have that
correct
other pal.
Yeah, and even when you do gain advances in the more risky things, it's just about you staying 100% exposed to risk, or do you want to start layering a little bit of what's in there over to something that's not risky? So it's constantly growing in this and then move it to safety, grow it in this and then move it to safety. It's like a cycle.
Yeah. All right, let's take William. Let's go to line one. William, good morning. How are you?
Doing great, Liddell. How you doing?
I'm well.
Can you hear me?
I can.
I'm on speakerphone.
I can.
I want to thank you and your guests for your inspiration. I'm an older guy, but however, I stopped making excuses a few years ago and took control of my life. I have a home-based business. I took care of my health with replacements and cataract surgery. And you have to take control of your life. What CNN tell you, contagious negative news, you got to put that to the side and prepare yourself. It's never too late to change.
True.
There's a book I'm reading now called Virtual Selling. It's like the modern Who Moved My Cheese.
It's what's the name of it?
Virtual Selling by Jeff.
Virtual Selling.
J.E.B. Blunt.
Okay.
B-L-O-U-N-T.
Yes.
You know about it?
I know exactly who he is.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. In other words, I'm the president of one of my organizations. And you have to change. That's the bottom line there. Pettiness is not going to help no more. And you have to adapt. I talk to millennials all the time about improving themselves. So bottom line, never too late to change.
Beautiful. And thanks for the book tip. I just looked at
fanatical
that.
prospecting, objection handling, very much people are entrepreneurs.
Yes, ma'am.
Got you. Well, that's That works for me. I might be adding that to the reading list. Thanks for the phone call.
Sure.
All right, good stuff. Okay, I got another question here. What is the best way to teach your teenage children about the importance of building their savings when they haven't watched you do the same? In fact, you've done the opposite most of their lives.
You got to do it first.
Yeah.
There's no better
Yeah.
time to do it. The minute you do it, you're establishing a complete different action, habit, mindset. And the reality is you can never tell your kids to do something that you aren't doing now. Not that, I wish I would have done this. No, do it now, and then they will actually realize that's the truth. Because your actions and what you say need to match each other. So the parents have to do it first, regardless of what it is. It's just establishing, because any parent can at least get the coverage needed to start a death benefit. Even if they don't think they have enough to build the kind of cash value they want, just simply entering that stage, because then that death benefit with the cash value that does accumulate still goes into the kid's plan upon death.
Yeah. And I'll say this, because I don't know that I ever saw my parents' policies. I knew they had them because there was a conversation about them.
I never saw mine.
Oh.
Never.
So, I mean, there was a conversation. And so from that perspective, it was like, this is something I should do. You get where I'm going? I can only imagine the power of sharing with Legend his policy.
You don't even know any different.
Yeah, like, here's what the cash, benefit looks like, the death benefit looks like, this is what you'll have in your overall, cash value. Like, just having that conversation, here's how you want to think about the cash value, how you want to use the cash value in the future if you need to. I'm just thinking
And
about
you're
what
doing
the
it the
impact.
right way too, because a lot of parents need to know you still own the plan for Legend.
Yeah.
Being the owner
Yeah.
has all say. He's the insured, but you're the owner.
Right.
You don't pass over that ownership until you know he's ready. So even if you have a teenager,
Right.
just want you to know you're owning that plan. Until you know for a fact that they're ready to receive it.
There you go.
That's it.
There you go. We got to talk to Pops about that.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh yes.
Mom and Dad.
Yes.
Okay, got another question here. Sheena, can you say a brief word about Roth IRAs and HSAs? Let's just start with the Roth IRA.
Roth IRAs are great. They're a tax-free vehicle, and it's a great way to build up that wealth that protects you in taxes. Now, what you invested in is also going to be a determining factor if it's exposed to loss or not, because you can invest in different things. Now, the other side of it is what people realize with the limitations is I only have $5,500 or $6,500 a year to fund this with, and I want to put more into it. So what do? That's where the cash value life insurance plans.
That's why I
play a
started
role.
smiling. I'm like, because you could put so much more
And
into
those
your
as-
IUL.
Exactly.
So you just taught me this, and I'm transparent, Sheena.
Yes.
I didn't know, right? So we have the IUL policy.
Correct.
I knew I could put more in it.
Correct.
I didn't know how much more, and so because of my knowledge of Roth IRAs, I thought like, oh, okay, I could drop like $5-6 grand a year. I'm like, okay, so, okay, we'll do some of that in the future, but I have these other vehicles, other things, and then she and I are having a conversation about Legends, upping Legends policy. She's like, yeah, and so with that, you all can put, up to this much in Legends policy to help you avoid taxes. And I'm like, wait, what? Then I'm like, I go back and I'm like, well, what is, so you do the work and you find ours.
Of course. And then that's where the tax code is your favor.
Yes.
Because depending on how much you have in coverage, the more you have, the more of a bucket you can put into it, which is where TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA come in. And so then when you look at it, you're like, wow, that's way beyond a Roth limitation. This is a good idea. And I'm not losing? Okay. This is
If you
interesting.
all are wondering why the rich don't pay taxes, because they know about these vehicles.
Let me go deeper into that, because if
Or they
you
pay
work-
less in taxes.
If you work at a job, just want you to know, they leverage this to keep key employees at the C level.
That they do.
It's an IUL, but it's called an executive bonus plan. I just want
That's
you to know
right.
it still can be an IUL. It's just crazy how much this is used, and I started to look at that and I'm saying, wait a minute, why do my C level people have this and they don't offer this to employees? Oh, I get it. Okay, we're not as valuable. I get it. I'm gonna go find this myself.
Yeah. Well, and as a former executive and officer, we even have different health insurance plans and different checkups Like, so everybody else in the company has access to one type of checkup.
Exactly.
Right? I got access to like a full-on, thorough health and well-being
You know
checkup.
why? The value was different.
Yeah.
It's the value. So
Yeah.
then you got to sit there and say, I value myself.
Why am I not doing this for me?
But it's a health checkup, right?
Yeah.
So life, health, and now your wealth.
There you go.
So they're validating it at all levels.
That's good stuff. All right. So what about HSAs?
Those are good assets for you to have a safe haven, but the limitations of what you can spend the money on is where it
Yeah.
doesn't serve you well in the long run, especially in retirement. You want to have complete control in what you're doing in retirement, and that is good for that time being for certain purposes, but not for everything. Same thing what you can say about saving for kids with 529 UPMA and UGMAs, especially in today's era where people are questioning, is it valuable for my kids to go to school and us to be in debt? I know they're questioning that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you need just the flexibility. You have to have more flexibility now than ever before when you put something somewhere.
Wow. Wow. Great question. So, we're almost at time. One of the things we promised to talk about was student debt.
Yes.
And so, I can't, I'm just going to, on a personal level, I can't imagine having that kind of debt. I just, and my heart goes out to anybody that is struggling with student debt. I mean, I'm incredibly fortunate. The most I owed any school was $5,000.
I was lucky to have a softball scholarship.
Yeah. And so that hasn't been something, like, that's not a reality for me. But the more and more millennials I talk to, people who work for me, they're like, Linnell, why don't you talk about debt? Why don't you talk about debt? Why don't you talk about debt? Right? Because this is their reality.
Right.
And because it's not my reality, it hasn't really been a part of my conversations, but I do want to bring it into this conversation.
By the way, life insurance plays a role in that.
In what way?
Well, think about it. How many people out there realize that their parents are attached to that loan?
They
by the way,
co-sign.
They co-sign. And even if they didn't co-sign, parents, if you're looking at this situation, you're saying to yourself, you both need to have life insurance to cover that debt upon one of you passing away. And that would literally wipe it out in an instant. So outside of you figuring out how to pay now, you immediately need to have coverage so that debt's not passed on. Life insurance can solve it simply by setting up a plan.
Wiped out.
Correct? Especially on the cosign. So then now we go back to the root of it.
Right.
Why did we get
Right.
to this point?
Mhm.
That's where I tell people you have to be your own coach first. You have to understand, was this really the right idea, right game plan? Why did it become this way? And then go seek out the alternatives. My alternative was I realized that I can only make a certain number of income because I was given the fish, which is a job, a paycheck.
Right.
Versus I let someone else determine my value. Until you actually value yourself, what William just said, there's no late time. Start now.
Right.
The gentleman is literally learning how to
Right
be an
now.
entrepreneur.
Right now, yeah.
He's not waiting anymore.
And he said he was more mature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He said
Yeah.
all the people that are younger, I want you guys to start doing this. We have access to so much information that you can be an entrepreneur. Matter of fact, you're already learning entrepreneurial skills. You don't even realize it. Do you have a job? Yes. Well, you sold yourself to that job. And when people learn these skill sets, they realize they just need the right platform, the right coaching, the right industry, and they can create their own wealth to be able to tackle that debt. But in the meantime, make sure you have insurance on it, so that if anything happens to you or Lord forbid anybody who co-signed with you, that can be wiped out in an instant.
Got it. Now, I'm stuck with this debt. My parents couldn't co-sign. And by the way, that's the reality for a lot of
Oh yes.
us, a lot of people that look like us, right? Parents, credit wasn't there. They didn't even really care if you went to college or not, right? So you make this decision. You're 17, 18 years old. And this is insane to me, right? That at the age of 17 or 18, I could begin to pull down hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Doesn't make sense.
Right? It doesn't make sense. But they allow me, and I do, to go to college because that's what I'm supposed to do. All right? So I do that. Now here I am, post-college. I have my undergraduate. I have a graduate degree. And let's just say I'm about 150, because I've heard like $200,000, like I can't hardly say it, $200,000 worth of debt, at least in the circle that I'm in, doesn't seem to be in terms of school debt, doesn't even seem to be like that high. Like it's like, oh yeah, that's what I got, right? And I'm sure there's some millennials out there right now shaking their heads like, yeah, that's me. I remember when I graduated, I was dating a girl who had $60,000.
Ooh,
Okay,
still a lot.
and when she said it, I was like, I don't know if I want to be with you no more, right? Like, that was 60. Because in my mind, I'm like, 60 is a lot of, I mean, you
Yes.
know, in my early 20s, a lot of money.
Yes.
Now it's much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm, I mean, and by the way, these bills are coming in month over month, right? Unless I'm a teacher and somehow I got it deferred or forgiven. Anyone else, it's coming in month over month, right? I got to pay. And many millennials are dropping $1,000 or more every month, which is, you know, basically a mortgage, is why many of them don't have homes, on school debt. How do I begin to think? I mean, I'm paying out so much already. Most of my check is going towards loans that I took out in school or bad credit card debt. Where do I find the space to begin investing?
It goes back to, if I look at your bank statement, if you're living at home, especially, there is room.
Yeah.
Even if it's a simple $25, $50, $75.
But Sheena, I want to be able to enjoy some of the fruits of my labor. I mean, I gotta pay for school. I got all these things. Like, if I were to get a life insurance policy, like, that's going to take away. Like, then what am I working for? I'm working for the future.
This is where it goes back to that instant gratification problem. If I go ask my parents what hard work really is, compared to what people think hard work is
right?
now, it's night and day. Even when we are raising our kids in the teenage phase, and they're saying that life is, you know, this, that, and the other is so difficult. If I look at how our parents grew up in the era that they grew up in, and I'm sitting here saying that this is hard, going to college is not hard. It's, you go to class, you take some courses, you pass, and you eventually graduate. But actually working hard for your money, that's the problem. You just got a 6-figure amount and you didn't work hard for it. See, now you actually have to show what hard work really is to pay off $200,000. So that's what I don't like about the student loans. It's like, how do you give somebody that much money? Because then they're going to be warped to thinking that that's easy to actually acquire that much money. No, you're about to figure out what it means to actually earn $200,000. And being an entrepreneur, to me, is solving the wealth problem. Because you have to go out there and seek another way to make additional income. I'm not saying leave your job. I'm saying you realize that at a certain point, job is not going to pay you more than this. So do I want to have another job, or do I want to start my own business in a way that's stable and reliable, that it can build an income to start tackling this debt sooner rather than later? That's the only way to do it. It's not a savings problem before it's a how do I make my money problem. It's an income problem.
Got it.
Income inequality problem.
Got it. And I just saw a comment here from that's a phenomenal answer, by the way. And I just saw a comment from one of the listeners who were like, oh, well, you know, I guess federal loans, they die when you die.
Co-sign. I'm only co-sign and federal loans, but
okay. But here's what I'm thinking about. Okay, it dies when I die.
I know you're going with it.
You do? But do I really want to be paying that in my mature years?
Yes.
Do I really want to be paying on my college loans in my mature years? And then I'm thinking about the amount that people are paying. Like I don't want to be paying that. So the more vehicles I have in place that are providing me income, the better off I'm going to be.
And if you don't address that, even if it goes away when I pass away. If you don't address that, you don't realize that you're putting more towards paying off debt than you are saving. You're prolonging the inevitable. It's going to hit you. You have to start tackling it right away. You realize you got to get rid of it sooner rather than later. How are ways that you can do it? Well, estate planning would definitely help on that one.
Estate planning. There we go.
Honestly, I bet you one single decision. If I saw my son in that much debt, I would automatically get life insurance, knowing that I know that I'm going to pass away before him, because that's what I wanted. I want to pass away first. Then I'm going to make sure that goes away from his life.
Beautiful. All right, so we got 7 minutes. I want to ask you some personal questions to finish off the show. one, I want to thank you for, just being in the studio and sharing your valuable time with us to educate us, number one. Because this is golden, and now this is immortal, right? It'd be, on YouTube and recorded for, far, far beyond us. And in many ways, a lot of what you talked about will stand. And that is the power of these type of conversations, you guys. Mm-hmm. But I just want to, on a personal level, I want to just let the audience know a little bit more about you and your process. So, in terms of your family's personal finances, like how much time would you say you dedicate in a week? Right? I was going to say a month, but this is just in a week to reviewing and thinking about your family's finances.
Oh, by far, it's just increasing net worth. So every week I'll analyze where everything went. I'll reach out to my CPA who does profit and loss. And
every week?
Yes, because I want to know what's going on. I just don't want to wait on it. So she's been great. She's been a great trainer for me to understand the world of taxes and how the codes work and all of that stuff. But I would look and analyze it and say, just balancing it out. Am I building wealth? Am I taking wealth? That's my biggest question. Am I building wealth this week, or am I taking away from wealth?
Week over week.
Week
I love
over
that.
week.
Okay.
And no matter how much income we make, it's always going to be the same thing with me. I'm very particular. So it's the same old me. So just because you have money doesn't mean you have to spend it.
Wait. Just because you have money doesn't mean you have to spend it? Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean? Like, tell me what that means.
Well, I believe in when you have money, you invest it, not spend it. And spend it means you're putting it towards things that give you no value in return. Investing it means you're planning on double, tripling what you just made. So you're increasing your wealth, not decreasing your net worth. And when I started to do that, I started to look at my habits. And the habits that I didn't really thought I had, I was like, oh wow, this habit here and habit here and habit here. And I started to be more particular about it. And when you are inspecting what you expect, then you're going to watch a behavior change. And when my behavior changed, the decisions I would make, the things that I would look for started to be different because I was actually looking at it every single week. Am I increasing my net worth, or am I decreasing my net worth?
Got it. Okay, another question. Do you have personal financial goals?
Oh, yes.
Are they written down?
Yes.
Oh, who'd have thought?
Yes. Mine is increments of net worth. Like, I've realized that it's a net worth discussion. So once the net worth for me and my husband are established, I'm dealing with the net worth of my children. So I wanted to go for 10, up to 100, up to a decamillionaire, up to a billionaire. And then if I look at my generation, I want my sons to get there faster than me.
Beautiful.
So it's going to take me a good solid 30 to 40 years to do it. It's going to take them a good solid 10 to 20.
Lovely, lovely. All right. If there was one thing that you were going to leave with listeners that you just feel like, based on the conversations we've had, 4 hours of information, 4 great hours of information that you provided over the last 3 weeks, what would that one thing be that you like, hey, look, if you concentrate anywhere, concentrate here? What would that be?
Your value. It's a self-worth discussion, because even when I sit down with people, if I can just sense that there's no way of them valuing, like they don't think this simple contribution can start something big, and getting them to think long-term versus short-term, it all centers around value and identity. So number one, have an understanding of your current value and identity, and start having the discussion if you want to change it.
I like to say this all the time. I am worthy because I breathe. I am worthy because I breathe. And if you're breathing with me this morning, you're worthy. That means you're incredibly valuable. Thank you for saying that, Sheena.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a value. All right. And again, if you want to get in contact with Sheena, learn more, connect with her to figure out how your personal financial situation can be assessed, and potentially you can get into one of these products. Give my office a call, 312-899-6245.
With the stipulation that you're open for change.
Yeah, beautiful. That you're open for change. And why would we want to change? Because if we continue on the same path, the majority of us, we're not headed anywhere good. And so, yeah, change is a good thing.
Correct.
Sheena, thank you.
Of course.
This has been absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm looking at the comments, lots of things already in the stream in terms of what people are saying. This has been incredible. This is actually the end of the money series. And we ended with you. We've had a phenomenal conversation. If this is your first time listening, make sure you go back, check out the series, you guys. We started with exploring poverty and wealth. Sheena called it out, mindset. Mindset is everything. And I love it because the one thing I asked, I'm like, what's the one thing? And you went right there, right? Your value is your mindset. Yeah, I am worthy, and that is a mindset. So thank you guys for listening. Once again, for those of you who listen every week, you know I talk about it on a regular basis. We're going back to Ghana. Check out the website, LionelHarris.com, to learn more. Man, the money series. Once again, thanks, Sheena,
Of course, anytime.
for being here. And you've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Lionel Harris, and life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the Talk of Chicago. Hey, I do this because I care. I care more than you guys can even begin to imagine. It's my purpose. My purpose is to help you live the best life possible. Keep listening. We'll be back next Sunday with more. Until then, God bless you and have a phenomenal and safe holiday weekend.
Amen to that.
All right, you guys. Hey, if you enjoyed that, share the stream. Tell your friends, tell your families about the money series. Tell them to go check it out. Invest the time to listen, take notes, so they can transform their own financial trajectory.
Is less convincing
And
than
as
problem.
always, I love you guys. Thank you for the support. Thank you for all that you do. Hey, let's get this money together. All right? Let's make it happen. Until next week, I'll talk to you guys later.